Dear friend, welcome back to our series, Moses, the Servant of God. Today, we arrive at chapter 10a, turning point in both history and heaven, the moment when long-held promises were fulfilled, when slaves became a nation, when God moved in power to redeem his people. This is the story of preparation, of faith, and of a God who never forgets his word. Let's begin. For months, Egypt had suffered under the mighty hand of God. Each plague had grown more severe. The rivers turned to blood, frogs, gnats, and flies filled the land. Livestock died, disease broke out, hail smashed the crops, locusts devoured the fields, darkness swallowed the land. But in Goshen there was peace. From the fourth plague on, God had made a distinction. While judgment struck Egypt, Israel remained untouched. Why? Because Moses believed. He trusted what God said, and that trust was honored. No livestock died in Goshen. No boils broke out on Hebrew skin. No darkness dimmed their skies. And while Egypt trembled, Israel prepared. And what were they preparing for? An exodus. Their deliverance was coming. And though they didn't know the exact hour, God gave Moses specific instructions. The New Testament tells us, by faith Moses kept the Passover and the sprinkling of blood, lest he that destroyed the firstborn should touch them. Hebrews 11:28. It wasn't ritual that saved them, it was faith. Moses trusted God completely, and that trust became the shelter of an entire people. Let's pause here. All true faith must rest on a promise, not on emotion, not on wishful thinking, but on a clear word from someone completely trustworthy. In this case, that someone was the living God. He spoke to Moses again. And though we don't know if it was a voice or an inner certainty, the message was unmistakable. The instructions were detailed. On the 10th day of the coming month, every household was to choose a lamb, a firstborn male, perfect, without blemish. If the family was small, they could share with a neighbor. But the lamb would never be too small because Christ, the true Lamb of God, is always enough. Enough for all, enough for each, enough forever. That lamb was to be kept until the 14th day, then killed just before sunset. Its blood was to be caught and applied, not on the floor, but on the doorposts and lintel, the frame of their homes, a sign of trust, a covering of grace. And more than that, God gave instructions for the people themselves. They were to eat in haste, belt on, staff in hand, sandals tied, the dough bowls wrapped up, the children gathered, their hearts ready to leave. It was not just a meal, it was an act of faith. They ate not as slaves, but as travelers, not as victims, but as those about to be delivered. This time, God's people weren't passive. In the earlier plagues, they had only watched. But now, they were called to act, to obey, to believe, to move. And this is always how God works. He draws near, not only to rescue us, but to awaken our faith. Moses knew something deeper was unfolding. God was not simply judging Egypt. He was testing Israel too. They were not sinless. They had also wandered. They had embraced idols, forgotten the Sabbath, lost sight of covenant signs, but God gave them a way to be covered. When I see the blood, I will pass over you. Exodus 12:13. That was the promise Moses clung to, and it was enough. So what did Moses do? He obeyed immediately. He gathered the elders. He shared every word God had spoken. This time there was no resistance. The people listened. They worshipped. And they did exactly as the Lord commanded. Picture it. A nation in motion. Lambs chosen, fires lit. Children watching wide-eyed as blood was brushed across the doors. The smell of unleavened bread in the air. And one ear always listening for the whisper, "It's time." To the human mind, the ritual made no sense. How could a little blood on a doorway stop the angel of death? But they didn't ask. They didn't demand an explanation. They trusted. And when night fell, Egypt waited in dread. But in Israel, there was peace. No fear, no trembling, because the blood was there, and God had promised. Then it happened. In the middle of the night, a cry, then another, then everywhere. The firstborn of Egypt had died. From the lowest servant to the son of Pharaoh himself, death had come. There was no magic, no medicine, no way to reverse it, and there was a great cry in Egypt, Exodus 12:30. But friend, even that cry full of anguish could not match the centuries of Hebrew tears. The sorrow of broken families, beaten slaves, murdered infants. That night, justice came, and Israel stood untouched. Pharaoh finally called for Moses. There were no deals, no terms, no delays. He simply said, "Go," and the people went. Can you imagine it? For the first time, they were free. They weren't slaves anymore. They were a people, a nation, united by blood, by promise, by the mighty hand of God. And joy began to rise. Songs formed in their hearts. Freedom echoed in every step. Moses' faith had brought them here, and it would lead them forward. Dear friend, this same God, the one who sees, who speaks, who saves, still leads today. You may feel bound, burdened, stuck in a kind of Egypt, but the Lamb has been slain, the blood has been shed, and the promise still stands. When I see the blood, I will pass over you. So believe, stand in faith, and be ready to move. Because when God calls you out, He always leads you through. Thank you for joining us for Chapter 10, Preparing for the Exodus. If you were encouraged, share this with a friend, and let your faith rise. Subscribe to our channel. We're walking daily through the spiritual journey of Moses and beyond. We'll see you next time in Chapter 11.